For this video, the project I've got is a brand new in the box Kato ALCO RSC-2 diesel. Now at the time that these were made, all of their HO scale models came as kits, or partial kits anyway, where you had to add on the details. This one is completely untouched, and just as it would have been when it was made probably back in the 90s, I think is when this one is from. So you can see already that this is a really nicely made, sharply molded and detailed model. It's got some good heft to it too, so with that and the 12-wheel drive, it should have some nice traction. Now as for the parts, these are all in the bottom of the box, and it's just a set of handrails and some grab irons and a couple other parts. It's nothing too complicated. Just undo the tape there, pull that out. There's some smaller ones in there too. So all of the details are plastic, molded in color, very finely scaled, and they all press fit for easier assembly. All right, now let's get started. There's everything all laid out. Now to build one of these kits, the only tools you need are some clippers for cutting the parts off of the plastic trees, serrated jaw pliers for inserting the parts, and you may also want a file just in case you have to clean off any flash. So starting small, I'll just take my plastic clippers and carefully trim off one of these grab irons. And then gently hold on to that with my serrated jaw pliers. Now before I try to press that grab iron in, one little thing I forgot about is that sometimes paint can get into these holes. So for these I'm using a 1/2 millimeter drill bit, just kind of clean them out and get them ready. So now with those holes cleaned out, I can gently line up that grab iron, insert it, and press it into place. And now I'll do the same for the rest of them. Now for these curved corner grab irons, I've done the same thing of first drilling these holes out with a 1/2 millimeter bit. And these are really tricky, but once you've got them inserted into their holes, they'll stay in place no problem. Just like that. So I've got those 4 in place, and you'll notice that one of these is longer than the others, and the one on this side is a drop-down style. There's also one that goes on this side, and it's flat instead of dropping down. Again, just insert that into the holes. These parts are so flexible that sometimes it's kind of tricky to press them in place. But they do all go in. And now with all the grab irons on, next piece I'll do is the brake wheel. Line that up with the hole. And then once you've got it lined up, you can just push it in with your finger or thumb. You can also give it a little twisting motion just to make sure that it really fits in place. And now that's on there. Now for the number boards, just to make sure they've got a good fit, I'll very gently go over the sides of them with a file because there may be some flash left over from trimming them. Now to get the number board in place, just gently place that on there with my pliers and see if I can use the tip to press that in there. There we go. Once it gets started, it goes in pretty easily and stays there, and you get a nice flush fit. Now for the coupler lift bar, I'm starting at one side and just going along one pin at a time. And to get these sides in, once you've got the hole lined up, you can actually kind of take your pliers and squeeze them like that to finish pressing them in place. But of course that last one I won't want to do until these other two are done. Just like that. Now these pilot grab irons are a little tricky to get in. So I'm kind of getting one pin at least inserted, like that. And once that's inserted, just make sure both of those pins are pressed in. That's easiest to do with the tip of a screwdriver. And the last detail to go in before the handrails is the horn. So just carefully line that up with those two top holes and then press it in. And now for the handrails. Unlike most other diesels, these RS type railings press down into the top of the floor. So just do one stanchion at a time. The fit of these isn't super tight, but it should be enough to stay in place. Then take the end, insert that into the hole, then do the same for this end. And then do the same thing for the rest of the handrails. And the only parts left now are the end railings. These only have a few small points to hold them on, so they should go in place pretty easily. Got two tabs down there, another couple over here. So you'll definitely want to press those in place with pliers to make sure they're secure. And just like for the lift bar, we'll squeeze that into place with the pliers, nice and gently. The rest of those are also in. That's all there is to putting the end railings on. And with all those details in place, the kit is now finished. Before taking it to the layout though, there are a couple more things I want to do here. Since this has been sitting in its box for a long time, I do want to take the shell off and make sure that everything is properly oiled. And the first thing you have to do to get the shell off is to remove the couplers. That's just a screw for each one. Coupler comes out from the front, just like that. With the couplers off, the shell should be able to release from the chassis. Just some latches along the way so you can rock that back and forth to help release them. Just take that up a little at a time. There it goes. There are a couple weights inside of here, so the shell's actually kind of heavy when you take it off. And there's the mechanism inside. Very standard for Kato. This is a wireless system, so the trucks contact these two metal strips here, which then clip onto the board here, and it looks like it's got LED lighting and more clips for contacting the motor. Then of course their high quality 5-pole motor with dual flywheels and a universal going to each truck. So I'll take a couple of these parts off and just add a little oil and fresh grease here and there if needed. So to remove the truck, all you do is go underneath with a flat blade screwdriver, pry that up. Looks like I'll have to do both sides here just to make sure it comes off properly. And there it goes. Lift that off. the worm lifts out like that. And the truck drops out from underneath. And right there you can see the two contacts that touch those metal strips. And those gears also look a little bit dry, so I will add some grease. And while I've got it off, I'll also add a touch of oil to each of these wheel bearings. Since the top of the truck is open, that makes it real easy to add some grease. Just put some on the teeth there. A little more on the teeth here. And then just roll that in. And I think that's coating the teeth well enough. Add just a couple more drops in here. And then snap the cover back on. And that truck's ready to go. Now before putting the shell back on, I decided to give it a little track test, and it actually didn't run. So after examining a couple things, I found that one of these contact strips isn't actually making any contact at the moment. So I'll just take the PC board off the top here. Let's see, that's got motor clipped in. There we go. Let's take that clip off, and the PC board lifts off of the chassis. So the positive contact was working fine, but the negative contact here, or left rail contact I guess, was not touching the other contact strip at all. So I'll just bend both of these down a little bit to make sure they're both working the way that they're supposed to. Now reinstall the motor clip. Bend these down to make sure they stay in place. And put these two screws back in. And that is running smooth as can be. Which, of course, I would expect no less of a Kato drive. They really don't get much better than these. So, now I'll put the shell back on and put on some Kato couplers instead of those horn hooks and take it over to the layout. So while installing the couplers, I found that the standard Kato type boxes weren't actually holding them to the correct height. They were sitting too low, so these pins were going to run into any switches or re-railers that these ran over. So I custom made these new coupler boxes in my 3D printer, got them sized just right, so the couplers should be exactly where they need to be. And there it is on the track, ready to go. Just power it up a little bit here. Starts off nice and smooth. I don't know if you can hear it, but one interesting noise that I've always had with the Kato drive is when they're fresh from the factory and haven't had time to run in, the gears seem to make an interesting whistling noise. It doesn't affect the operation. It's just a little odd to listen to. Once it's had a while to run though, that noise usually quiets down, and then the gear drive is practically silent. One other really impressive thing about these drives is even at really low voltage, I've got that at, let's see, about 1.1 right now. It's just crawling, and that's actually not even a skewed armature motor. Kato's always used straight slots on their iron cores. and somehow managed to overcome the cogging motion that usually happens and maintain really steady low speeds. They're just some really well designed motors. So I'll just couple this to some cars. Then I'm gonna start it up and let it run in for a while. So I've had this running for about an hour in each direction now. I still hear a bit of that sort of gear whistling noise, but I mean, the operation of this thing is as smooth as can be, and I think that noise will continue to fade over time. I mean, it's still really quiet overall, and you can see it there, it just crawls super smoothly. So yeah, you really can't go wrong with any of these Kato made models. They're just really, really good runners straight out of the box. Of course, a little tune-up will always help when they've been around for a while, but just to have this kind of performance with just like a minimal amount of work really does say something about their quality. And just to give you all one last close-up of all the detail on this thing, you can see that the walkway tread is very clearly molded along with all the ventilation. Up on top you can see that kind of simulated radiator fan inside. Of course, that's all just a one-piece mold, but their three-dimensional molding really is excellent. The paint is sharp and smooth as can be. Very nice color. Even the gold lettering has a bit of a metallic shine to it. Kind of hard to see on camera, but it does have kind of a shine. Got a cab interior, which is a little bit split because of the drive line. They had to make room for that, but for the most part, it looks really good. Honestly, think about one of the only real shortcomings with Kato's detail is that their ventilation is almost never actually see-through, and they're molded grab irons. They're very good, but not quite as good as wire. But honestly, when these things are running, you barely even notice those little extra details. They're just really nice overall. And you really do want to have that little drill bit on hand for clearing out the grab iron holes, because when there is paint inside of there, that can make it extremely difficult to actually put the grab irons on. I actually managed to damage a couple along the way while building this one. But as long as you can clear those holes out, the parts aren't too hard to get in. And you end up with a very nice looking model overall.